The next thing I want to talk to you about is Motivational Monday. So you got the first email regarding Motivational Monday. And the idea for Motivational Monday is for it to be a bit of a mixture between compassion and kicking the butt. So some advice to get you started, some soul-soothing stuff to, help you get rid of your self-doubts and your worries and your fears. And the key thing I want to talk to you about is getting started with your writing routine. And in order to get a good writing or any sort of creative routine going, I strongly recommend that you wake up in the morning. And this is not going to be popular with everyone, so there might be a few night owls out there, but it's been my experience that getting up in the morning before the world tries to claim you is the best way to get writing done. I've tried doing it in the evening, it's not as effective. Evenings can be good for editing because that's sort of like a bit of a different headspace that you want to be in, and I'll talk about the difference between editing and writing at a later point. But so really for the writing, you want to write in the morning. And one of the key things to sort of get started with your writing in the morning is to minimize any sort of influence from your brain, because your brain doesn't always have your best interest at heart. You know sort of objectively that you want to write and that you want to prioritize it, but your brain can sort of throw you all sorts of curveballs and give you reasons to stay in bed. So in order to minimize the risk or removing agency from your brain, I recommend you having a morning routine. And the morning routine will sort of like help switch off your brain and just kind of like put you on autopilot. And in the document, I've shared some of my previous morning routines. I've had more morning routines that I can count. And I think the key thing about this and the key takeaway from that is that systems are meant to elevate you and empower you. So if at any point in time you feel like your morning routine is no longer working, just get on with it, move on, iterate, create a new routine. And it can be very subtle changes, but never become enslaved to the system that you've created, because then it defeats the whole purpose of having that routine in place. And at least I used to make the mistake of going back to my old routine. So if I had a phase of not writing for the longest time, I'd revert back to my old morning routine, thinking that if it worked before, it had to work again. So that's one key takeaway. I've shared a couple of my routines, but usually it's getting up in the morning, meditating, just to sort of like clear my head a bit, engage sort of like very objectively with my thoughts, so they don't end up sort of getting behind the wheel and sort of taking or hijacking my mind. And then a little bit of movement, just to like wake up your body. You are, after all, waking up a little bit earlier and just sort of like getting your pulse going. Whereafter there's either sort of like a cup of coffee or sometimes I hit the desk directly. So there are sort of like little permutations of the same routine, like it's the same element, but like there are different meditations, different kinds of movements. So over the coming weeks, I will come up with like different suggestions for like things you can incorporate in your routine. And since moving and meditations are these elements that are in all of my routines, it will be focused a lot around that. But it's also going to be focused around little like rites and rituals that can get you in the right headspace. An example of that can be, lighting a little candle, like something to sort of like prime your brain. So your brain is like, okay, now it's time to write. So that's going to be super helpful. And I will send everything I have and everything that's worked for me in the past and is currently working for me your way, and then you can pick and choose from it as a little buffet. And the other thing I'm going to talk about is how to unleash your creativity. So one thing that people often talk about is being a little bit scared of creative expression. Not sort of scared like you're scared of vampires or you're scared of like the dark, but just sort of feeling a bit sort of restricted. And I've experienced that a lot in the past. It still happens every now and then, but I've sort of like developed like different ideas and perspectives that has helped me feel more comfortable about creative expressions. I'm going to share those with you as well. And then once you're at the desk, you may sort of have problems keeping focused, and that's again sort of like a product of our brain trying to throw all sorts of tantrums at us. So I have a few tips and tricks on that, which I'll be sharing in the following weeks. And then last is procrastination, because that's something I think we can all relate to. Even the things that we find really, really important can be difficult to prioritize. So I will share a few tips on that as well to help you not just develop, but also maintain your writing routine. So hopefully this will be helpful to you. And with that in mind, I'm going to dive into the first week's content. Great.